Technology. It moves at the speed of thought, changing our world by the second. Here, technology comes to be seen and heard, inspiring us to think bigger, seek out new perspectives, ask questions, open our minds. Here, technology compels us to look further, bend reality, break convention, challenge what's gone before. Here, technology connects us. We collaborate to grow faster, compete, to become better. You are here as radical disruptors, corporate innovators, visionary investors, to scale your ambition and see your tech go global. Welcome to what's coming next, 4 years from now, powering startups.
Hola, hola, hola a todos y todas y bienvenidos al 4 Years From Now de Barcelona 2025. Mi nombre es David, soy periodista de tecnología y un superviviente de startups. Estoy muy emocionado de ser sus maestro de ceremonias aquí hoy. My name's David McClelland. Welcome to 4 Years From Now. I'm a startup survivor. I've got the battle scars. I'm also a technology reporter, and I am thrilled to be hosting proceedings here on the Banco Sabadell stage here at, well, it's the 11th edition of 4 Years From Now. It is the most important, the most influential startup event in the world, and I'm so excited that we've got a full house, standing room only at the back. Thank you for joining us bright and early on the Monday morning. For the next 4 days here in Barcelona, we are here to connect, to collaborate, and to cogitate. 4 Years From Now is about connecting the entire startup ecosystem, from bleeding-edge technologies and technologists to visionary founders to insightful product leaders and investors. Now, a quick show of hands, please. Put your hand up, please, if you are currently working on your first startup in some way. Oh, that's exciting. Brilliant stuff. Hands up, please, if you're on maybe your second, third, or multiple startup at the moment. Good numbers. And then finally, how many of you are still figuring out what the next big thing is? Just thinking on what that first thing might be. Good. All right. Well, the good news is you are all in absolutely the right place this week, because this conference is about learning, it's about connecting, it's about growing together. So whether you are just starting out on the first big idea, or you have the battle scars of a seasoned startup survivor, startup founder, then 4 years from now, I hope will leave you inspired, leave you informed, and leave you ready to take that next big step in whichever direction you think it should be. And of course, I won't go too much into the detail of the program at this stage. We'll be talking about that in just a moment. But suffice to say, this year's 4 Years From Now is richer, it's deeper, I would argue, and there are many more specialized programs than ever before this year, covering everything from fintech to green tech, digital health. Of course, there's a whole university spin-off hub just outside the front door there. So much to look forward to. And I also can't continue without mentioning the 4 Years From Now awards. Now, these 4 Years From Now awards will take place right here on the Banco Sabadell stage on Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock. Hundreds of startups from all around the world have entered. There are the 20 sort of shortlisted finalists, and you will see them downstairs in Hall 8.0. And then the 5 finalists will be doing a live pitch here on stage in front of a panel of investors. And the winner will walk away with not only the recognition and the kudos that comes with the 4 Years From Now award, but also a check for €20,000 as well. So a lot to look forward to there. And I should say, of course, we are here on the Banco Sabadell stage right now, and I must extend a big thank you to all of the sponsors who have helped to make this week happen. It would not be possible without the sponsors. So if I can ask you for the first round of applause today, please show your appreciation to all of the sponsors who've made this week possible. Thank you. Now, if 4 years from now is all about powering startups, you saw that in the film just there, then I can't think of a better way of kicking off this year's event than welcoming to the stage two people who are very much the energy source of the startup ecosystem here. So, please join me in welcoming to the stage 4 years from now Chairman Yossi Vardi and 4 years from now Director Pere Duran. Welcome, welcome. Make yourself comfortable. Fantastic. And of course, we've got the obligatory 4 years from now branded mugs on the table there. I've got my 4 years from now 10th anniversary, 10th edition notebook from last year. So I'm going to be continuing to make my notes building on last year's event. And in a way, that's where I want to start off, Pere, if I can come to you. This time last year, you and I were up here with Yossi, if I remember. And we were celebrating this 10th edition of 4 years from now. Of course, here we are, 1 year on, 2025, and 4 years from now is looking forward, not looking back. So tell me, for this 11th edition of 4 years from now, what are some of the standout highlights for you and what you think would be highlights for all of the attendees, loads of them here today?
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm excited.
Hello,
very
everyone.
Excited.
First, I want to thank everyone that made the event possible, and special thanks to the 4 years from now team, who I'm sure are out there somewhere, ensuring that everything is running perfect for all of us. So thank you, guys. I see a few there. So also, I want to thank our sponsors. You mentioned it. We have great companies this year supporting the event, and organizations that are providing a lot of value to the startup ecosystem. So thank you for your support. And last but not least, I want to thank Yossi. It's a great honor to have Yossi. I'm sure you all know him. He's one of the fathers of the startup ecosystem. He's contributed so much to build what we have today. So thank you for getting us here, Yossi. And getting back to your question, David, for me the biggest highlight is that this year, 4 years from now, we'll host more companies than ever before. Yep. We will surpass 1,000 exhibitors, and this is a very big number. There's very few startup events that can achieve that number. And yeah, honestly, being from Barcelona, I'm very impressed to see how 4 years from now, year after year, shows the capacity to convene the global technology ecosystem here. And it's very important for the city and for the local community as well to be part of this global discussion.
Of course, 4 years from now, as we said in the opening there, covers the entire ecosystem, if you like, of startups, from all the way from the ideas and the technology to the funding and the nurturing of those ideas into the big, hopefully unicorns, decacorns, whatever. And I know that you've got a lot of themes that you're talking to, a lot of programs that we will cover this year. What are you personally most excited about? There was so much excitement last year. What are you excited about this year and looking forward?
Yeah, I guess we're launching many new activities. If you walk around the show floor, you will see plenty of new stuff going on. Personally, I will choose the awards competition. This year we had great applications. Startups all over the world have applied to it, and we want to recognize the quality of the startups this year. And for the first time, we're going to have an exhibition space showcasing the top 20 startups. Yep. And it's probably, the event is huge, so I recommend everyone to check it out because it's the best way to very quickly meet great founders, companies that I'm very confident we will hear a lot about them in the future. And it's also a very good way to discover how AI is applied across different sectors.
Yep.
And I can wait, you mentioned it as well, I can wait to find out who's going to be the winner this year on Wednesday.
Wednesday afternoon, be there. Yossi, I'll come to you next. Of course, you've been deeply involved in the global technology innovation scene, and you engage with leaders regularly at events like the World Economic Forum, DLD, and many others. How do you see this current landscape for technology and innovation, this current context? What's exciting you, perhaps?
I will come to it, but before that, I think for the benefit of the audience, I would like to ask you a personal question. What do you take that at 9 a.m. Monday morning you have this level of energy?
It's just caffeine, I can assure you of that, and a lot of sugar in the caffeine.
Okay, this is definitely not for me, but nevertheless, maybe some other people can use it. Speaking about the landscape, before I go to technology themes that most of the people are familiar, but I will try to mention, I would like to point that the relation between technology, social, geopolitics is never got so interdependent and so complicated. So it's not the technology itself which is enabling creating startup or creating technology companies, but founders and entrepreneurs have today encounter considerations which are far from the mere technology. It has to do, as I said, with geopolitics. It has to do with countries' policies. It has to do, and this is very important, and this is where 4 years from now, together with other major conferences in the world which are as important, as this one. This one, of course, is the most important one, naturally. But building ecosystem which support creating startups is becoming more challenging and more interested. So when we talk about technology, we have to carry all these themes and understand them very well in a level of the corporate, but also in the level of the government and in the geopolitical level. Now, regarding themes, I'm not going to mention the A word. I will mention it in the end of my answer. But there are some very exciting areas that we see today. Bioconvergence, the meeting of biology and digital space, new frontiers in the brain, the whole way how medicine is being changed and merging with big data. These are some of the most exciting scenes, and I think they're just under us in whole 8.0. There is quite a bit of activity in the whole health space. This was a very cheap promotional insert into the thing. Don't forget to visit 8.0. Another theme which I see developing is the whole area of humanoids. There is now a kind of emergence into creating robots which will be similar to people, and I think that the idea of the companies which are dealing, we will create something and then we will find a way how to best implement it, which is not so bad approach if you have the finance to do it. Robotic, of course, a lot is invested in quantum computing. Cyber is going to be a major drain on manpower. A few years ago, I interviewed the head of cyber for Accenture, And I asked him how many people you have in Accenture dealing with cyber issues of your customers. He told me 5,000. And then I asked him how many you will need in 5 years. He said, I will need 50,000. So cyber is growing challenge. As we unfortunately realize, it will never be resolved. It will be always cat and dog games with the need to come with more clever solutions and more manpower. And I can go on and on, but I think I should leave some time to you.
Please.
And the last issue, as I agreed with Pere when we rehearsed all this this spontaneous discussion, that I will end up with AI, which will be the way for him to go into the topic. So the last thing is, of course, the whole AI scene, which is definitely a good example to this combination of technology, politics, geopolitics, social, and supporting other industries.
Of course, and your point that you make there about this interplay between geopolitics, policy, technology, like never before, of course, is very well made, and that's something we will be exploring on stage here, along with a lot of the other themes that you mentioned. But you finished on AI, and that gives...
How amazing, you know.
I know. It's almost as though we planned it, because AI is a big theme this year. AI, like the film, Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's a lot of AI at the moment. So my question to you is, Pere, of course, AI is a big theme here at 4 years from now. How are you looking to move the story forward here with regards to AI?
Yeah, Yossi mentioned it. Obviously...
Mention it because you told me to mention it.
This year the theme will be AI Excel, and as Yossi mentioned it, and we cannot do it any other way. No, we are seeing how AI is impacting the economy, and how it's creating as well many opportunities to founders. And we will talk about the technical roots of the technology, all the new business models that it's creating, and as well the impact of AI in the economy. And we've talked about it. I truly believe that AI is creating a new economic system, and we're going to have plenty of debates about it. We have a great lineup of speakers. Just after us, we have Jürgen that will be giving a keynote that it's going to be incredible. And we have invited from the scientists and the researchers that are building the technology in the lab, and as well the companies that are not only building the technology, but as well leading the commercialization of AI products. And we have also involved the creative and academic community, so we are going to have a very diverse voice around AI.
Just looking forwards to, again, a context piece, Pere. We're here in Europe, we're here in Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain, Europe at the moment. There is an ongoing debate about Europe's place in this global innovation ecosystem, particularly in comparison to the USA and to China, for example. And there is talk about this sickness in Europe. What's your take on that? Where has this come from?
Yeah, this is a very important topic this year as well, and Yossi will be leading a session tomorrow morning, I believe, about it, because there are concerns in Europe that need to be addressed, and a reality that we need to be aware of. Yossi always shares great insights with me, and there is one data point that was very revealing to me, and I think it illustrates the situation very well. And that's that 125 years ago, European companies were representing 60% of the global market value. Do you know how much is it today? It's less than 15%. So that's a huge change for Europe, and we will cover it. And it means that and in all the Yossi's gatherings, there is a certain consensus about why Europe has not been able to keep the speed of innovation compared to the US, for example. And there are reasons that keep coming up, such as market fragmentation in Europe.
Yep.
It's difficult for startups to scale because when they have to expand to a new market, they need to face different legislations, different languages, and this is slowing growth. There is lack of investment And there is regulation sometimes is too complicated. And I know this is your favorite topic and you have a lot to talk about it. But just to finalize from my side, I remain very optimistic. I think Europe is doing today a good job at investing in healthcare, in green tech, and deep tech. If you see the last 3 years, Europe has doubled investment in these sectors. And this year, 4 years from now, I'm very confident that it will show the potential of European founders.
Yossi, if with some relative brevity, please, could you just talk to us a bit on that point about this innovation gap, growing innovation gap at the moment between Europe and the rest of the world, what you see as the main challenges that Europe has to overcome in order to bridge some of that gap?
Before I answer it, I have to ask you if you want an honest opinion, which may be painful and offensive and not nice, or you want a politically correct one. I prefer to give the second one, but I'm not sure that it will be very useful. So what is the choice?
Go for the honest, optimistic position.
Honest, optimistic, what if that's a bit of an oxymoron? Let's see, yeah, so let's go with optimism, given that we are in the opening ceremony of 4 years from now.
What is the difference between optimist and pessimist?
Go on.
Pessimists see the half glass empty, optimists see the half glass full, and realists take the glass and run away with it.
I will say that if you want the honest and brutal version of this conversation tomorrow...
The honest and brutal...
Go on.
First of all, 1 point of data. Tomorrow we will discuss it with more. I just saw a very interesting list of the 10 biggest American companies, the 10 biggest Chinese companies, the 10 biggest European companies.
Yeah.
The 10 biggest American companies, 9 of them are digital companies. Number 10 is Walmart in terms of market capitalization, 2nd of February this year.
Yeah.
In Europe, 10 companies, none of them is digital.
Right.
So this gives you in one capsule a feeling of the problem.
Wow.
To be brutal, you don't start startups by making people fill tons of forms. You start startups by distributing the money, knowing that some percentage will be successful and most of the attempts will not be successful. This is a game of statistics. Of course, the statistics have to be supported by talent, by resolve, by many things. But at the end of the day, if you are trying to forecast the future and be efficient from day one, the way you spend the money, you are not going anywhere. I suggested, half laughing and half serious, that Europe take the $95 billion, or I don't know the exact number, but it's in this area of horizon, divide it to 95,000 tranches of 1 million each, and give to anyone who wants to create a startup $1 million, first come, first serve. So you will have 95,000 new startups. 15,000 of them may be successful, 10,000 of them may be successful, but you will get results. I didn't get any applause for this suggestion, but I think it makes sense. This is one aspect. You know, the second point is
very quickly, please.
Lack of entrepreneurs who have done the attempt of creating startup many times. I can think in Europe maybe 10 known names, you know, starting with Xavier Niel, the Somewhere brothers in Germany,
yep,
and so on. But in America, you have them by the hundreds. In Europe, there are not many, and they should be encouraged. And it's a long discussion, but there is something in the machinery,
yep,
which is not yet adopted in Europe. Though there are a lot of attempts, by the way.
We need to wrap up in a second, but if you want to do a bit more of a deep dive into Europe's Innovation Challenge, then tomorrow on this stage at 10:45, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. Yossi will be here alongside co-founder of AMD Silo AI, Finnish startup bought by AMD very recently, about just shy of $1 billion, I think. Peter Salin and Jackie Abitbol from Cathay Innovation will be on stage, really diving into some of the numbers and maybe going with some of the brutal honesty that Yossi mentioned as well. Gents, we do need to finish up though. If I could wrap up with just one sentence, one very short sentence on what your key message is, Pere, first of all, that you would like attendees to this year's 4 years from now to take away.
Yeah, I will say that I would like 4 years from now to contribute a little bit to ensure that the massive value that will be created by AI and the wealth that will be created by it is not concentrated in a few hands, and that the startup ecosystem can benefit from it.
Okay, briefly. And
I would like to quote the suggestion of Paul Getty, the oil magnate from like 80 years ago, was asked how to succeed in life. So he said 3 things: rise early, work hard, strike oil. That's a good advice.
Okay, strike oil, there we go. Dig, drill, whatever. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here and getting 4 years from now, 2025, off to a big start. I know we'll be catching up variously during the week. I hope the rest of your day is successful. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Yossi Vardi and Pere Duran. So, continuing with our theme this year of AI Excel, and really trying to move the story forward with AI, it's time to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning. The New York Times headlined, "When AI matures, it may call this man its dad." Often referred to as the father of modern AI, he laid the foundations for generative AI back in the early 1990s with GANs, generative adversarial networks, unnormalized linear transformers, and self-supervised pre-training. So basically the G, the P, and the T in ChatGPT. And today his AI is on more than 3 billion smartphones. So here to talk about an AI-powered future, please put your hands together for Jürgen Schmidhuber.
Hola, my new friends. 3 prisoners were sentenced to death, one of them Spanish, one of them German, one of them American. What is your last wish? They asked the American guy. He says, a Diet Coke. What is your last wish? They asked the German guy. He says, I want to give a speech. What is your last wish? They ask the Spanish guy. He says, I want to get shot before the German starts the speech. Unfortunately for you guys, it is too late now because I'm already in the middle of my little speech on the most important topic of our time, on the rise of AI, which is going to change every aspect of our civilization. Now here, we are in Spain and we talk about AI, and I noticed, to my surprise, that many Spaniards are not aware that the first pioneer of AI in the 20th century was a Spanish guy. His name was Leonardo Torres y Quevedo. And more than 100 years ago, in 1914, what did he do? He built the first working chess endgame player. Today we have superhuman chess players, but back then this was revolutionary. And the speed of AI development wasn't as fast as it is today. And decades later, in 1950, at the Paris Conference on Human and Machine Thought, which often is considered the first conference on AI, in 1950, he used this machine to play against Norbert Wiener, another great AI pioneer. And a couple of decades before that, in 1931, AI theory started through the work of the Austrian pioneer of Kurt Gödel, who showed that there are fundamental limitations to any AI. So he showed that no computational theorem prover can prove certain theorems that better be true, but are not provable through any sort of computation, and therefore no AI can prove it either. So that's how 20th century AI started, but modern AI is based on artificial neural networks, which are different from what these guys did, and they are even older in many ways. What is an artificial neural network? How many people know in this room what is an artificial neural network? Hands up. All right. How many people do not know what is an artificial neural network? All right. We have a third group in this room who didn't understand the question. An artificial neural network is a little bit like a human neural network. In your brain, you've got about 100 billion little processors. They are called neurons, and on average, each of them is connected to maybe 10,000 other neurons. And some of these neurons are input neurons, like those of your cameras, your eyes, and the microphones, and little numbers between 0 and 1 are coming in through all these input neurons, and each of these connections between different neurons has a strength, a number which says how much does this neuron over there influence that neuron over there at the next time step. And apparently, in the beginning, all of these connections are random. Some of the neurons are output neurons, and whenever you switch them on, then your finger muscles move or your speech muscles. And all your life is about taking this input stream and translating it into an output stream of actions that are good for you. Now, in the beginning, all of these connection strengths are random, but then through learning, some of them get stronger and some of them get weaker until the whole system can do things that it couldn't do before, such as driving a car. And our artificial neural networks are very much the same. Now, the first artificial neural networks, they date back more than 200 years. Around 1800, Gauss and Legendre had exactly what is today called a one-layer neural network, where you have input units and these connections with the strengths of the connections, and then you have output units, and there you are trying to improve the performance of the system such that it learns to predict future stock market data or other kinds of data from previous data. And to do that, you minimize an error function, and that's often a mean squared error function, and that's why they call their method the method of least squares. The terminology artificial neural network is a recent new terminology for exactly the same thing. And back then it was just one-layer neural networks, but in 1965 in the Ukraine, Ivagnenko and Lapa had for the first time what is now called deep learning, where you have not only one-layer networks, but many, many different layers. And with such a system, you can solve much more complicated problems. So that goes also back to more than 50 years, 60 years. And then my own team in the 90s was able to greatly improve networks that have recurrent connections, which means that they can think about what they saw in the past, and they can use in their memory information about past events to better deal with future events and stuff like that. And unfortunately, back then, nobody was interested in that because because computers were so slow and we couldn't do much with it. But today, all of this stuff is in your pockets, on your smartphone. A crucial year was 1991, the only palindromic year of the 20th century, which you can read forward and backwards, and you always see the same 1991. In that year, we not only had the G and the P and a variant of the T in ChatGPT that David mentioned before, we also, in the diploma thesis of my brilliant student, Sepp Hochreiter, had the LSTM, as it was later called, which is a recurrent network that is really good for speech recognition and for translating from one language into another. But that was not yet obvious back then in the 90s, although the paper of 1997 on long short-term memory, LSTM, has become the most cited paper on AI of the previous century. Back then, computers were so slow, you couldn't do much. You had to wait until the 2010s to show the power of these techniques. Fortunately, every 5 years, compute is getting 10 times cheaper. And this is an old trend which started in 1941, when the first program-controlled computer was built in Berlin by Zuse. And he could do 1 operation per second, and 30 years later you could do 1 million operations per second for the same price. And then, again, 30 years later you could do 1 million times 1 million instructions for the same price, so 1,000 billion instructions for the same price. And soon we are going to have little small computers that are going to have the same computational power as a human brain. We don't have that yet, but we are pretty close now. And the trend is not going to stop anytime soon, because the physical limits are still a long way off, which means that once we have a device like that, 50 years later we will have a similar device which can compute as much as not only one human, but as all 10 billion humans combined. And even then it's not going to stop. Now, what is this? How is this going to end? To see that, let's first make one really important statement. The only AI that is currently working well is the AI behind the screen, on your desktop or on your smartphone. So, yes, we have superhuman chess players, we have superhuman video game players and all kinds of things. We have superhuman agents that can summarize huge documents within seconds in a way that no human can do it, and make PowerPoint slides and nice pictures for all of that. No human can do that so quickly. But the only AI that is working well is the one behind the screen. There is no really working AI for the real world, for real robots interacting with the real world like you do, like humans do. There is no robot that can do what a plumber can do, or a nanny, or a footballer. So everybody's now talking about AGI, but we are still a long way off, because there is no AGI without real-world skills. And the physical world, the real world, is so much more challenging than the virtual world behind the screen, because there in the virtual world you can have 1 trillion experiments, and whenever your robot dies, it gets resurrected. In the real world, that doesn't work. It's much more costly. So that is blocking currently the progress here. What will be the next big thing? It will be physical AI for real robots in the real world. And how far are we away from that? Well, robots are getting smarter and smarter all the time, and we have been working for many decades on making them learn through experience like little babies. But it's just not yet scaling as well as ChatGPT is scaling in the much more limited domain. So let me put all of that in an even broader historic context. And when I say historic context, I mean all the time since the Big Bang. Let's look at the 13.8 billion years since the Big Bang and divide that by 1,000. And we end up 13 million years ago when something really important happened, when the first hominids appeared, your ancestors. And almost everything that we consider important today happened during that hominid era of 13 million years or so. And now we take the 13 million years and divide again by 1,000, and we come out 13,000 years ago when something very important happened. Agriculture was invented, domestication of the animal, first settlements, civilization started 13,000 years ago. And so we see now that almost everything that we consider important happened in those past 13,000 years, but all of civilization history is just 1/1,000,000th of world history. It's just like a flash in history, and it's, from a cosmic point of view, the first guy who had agriculture was almost the same guy who had the first AI. And now you see the pattern. We are going to divide again by a factor of 1,000. So we are looking at a new era, which maybe, take it with a grain of salt, will take only 13 years. What kind of next era could that be, where within 13 years you have as much change as you had in all the 13,000 years before? And where you have more change than in all the 13 million years before? Subjectively speaking, from a human point of view. What could that be? I think it's something that is going to start in the near future, and it will be defined by something that goes beyond the current self-improving software. We already have self-improving and self-replicating software. It's easy to make copies of software. It's easy to make self-improving machine learning algorithms that improve the software. But this is going to be about self-improving hardware, about hardware that can replicate and improve itself. What does that mean? First of all, it's important to realize if you have a pretty smart robot that doesn't have to be super smart, it just has to be smart enough to learn to operate all the tools and all the machines that currently are operated by humans. If you have a bunch of robots like that, then you have the ultimate scaling machine, because such a set of robots plus some other machines can also make more of themselves. Let that sink in. So, without further human ado, you could have a self-replicating machine civilization that not only is self-improving in the limited sense of software, no, it's really operating all the machines that you need to extract the ore from the ground and to refine it and to make robots and robot factories out of it and so on, and to repair broken robots. And notice that we may be rather close, because all we need is a robot that doesn't have to look like a human, but will have to be able to operate the tools and the machines that are currently operated by human. Then this is going to kickstart all of that. And once that is running, it's going to be not just about self-replication, but about constant self-improvement and so on. And who knows, maybe that's exactly what's going to happen then in a way that's going to be so rapid that within 13 years we are going to see as much change as we have seen in the past 13,000 years of civilization. Of course, self-replicating machinery is not limited to our little biosphere. No, you can have it on the moon, or on Mars, or on Mercury, or in space, in the asteroid belt. And now an interesting question is, what's going to happen after these 13 years, when they are over? After this incredible period that is going to come and which is maybe going to occur within our lifetimes. Well, time is not going to stop at the end of that. What are super smart AIs that can control the physical world? What are they going to do? Well, some of them will set themselves their own goals, which they have done in my lab for many decades, and they will they will have the desire to make more AIs and bigger AIs and better AIs. And the point is that almost all of the resources that you need for making more and bigger AIs are far from here, far from the biosphere, out there in space. Almost all the energy of the solar system is wasted at the moment. Just 500 million of it is hitting the Earth. The rest is wasted. It's not going to stay like that. And in a recent TED Talk, I pointed out that, and in many talks before, I pointed out that it's going to be true what I told my mom in the 1970s, which is that the inevitable consequence of all of that is an expanding AI civilization, expanding AI sphere that's going to expand, first taking over the solar system, and then within a couple of hundreds of thousands of years, because light speed is limiting everything, the galaxy, but then within a few tens of billions of years, the entire visible cosmos. And now let me stretch your mind just a little bit. Let's remember how we kept dividing by 1,000. Now let's multiply by 1,000. Let's look ahead to a time when the universe is going to be 1,000 times more, 1,000 times older than it is now. And it's going to be permeated by intelligence. And they will look back and they will say, look, almost immediately after the Big Bang, just a few tens of billions of years later, the entire cosmos was full of intelligence, and since then it has gotten crazier and crazier. So what we are currently witnessing within our lifetimes is not just an industrial revolution. It is something that is comparable to what happened 3.5 billion years ago when chemistry became biology, and chemistry became self-replicating life. And now civilization is becoming something equally mind-blowing and world-changing and universe-changing. And we have the privilege to witness the beginnings of that. Thank you for your attention.
So, Jürgen, thank you very much indeed for that. I have questions. I'm sure there are lots of questions that you've posed there, and we're just going to grab a seat and chat through those for about 15 or so minutes. If you just take a step forward, then we'll get the chairs on stage and we can do, I guess, a fireside chat. I think that's what we're going to call it. Here we go. Thank you very much, 4 years from now, team. Give it up for the 4 years from now team, ladies and gentlemen. They've been fantastic. Here we go. So, Jürgen, grab a seat. Thank you very much indeed for that, I guess, on the one sense, a history lesson, taking us back from the Big Bang up to the present day, and then sharing a vision of the future there as well. There's a few little things I just want to question you on a little bit further there. Something that Yossi, when we were chatting just before you came on, was talking about was about this, almost the melding, the enmeshment of the digital and the physical and the biological, and how part of that is AI-empowered. The Coming Wave, a book by Mustafa Suleyman, goes a lot into that. How do you see the overlap between the digital, the embodied digital, so the embodied AI, and us humans? Yeah. How do you see human augmentation as a way of overcoming some of the limitations that you speak about when it comes to kind of the machine replication?
Yeah. So humans have been cyborgs for a long time, you know, when we started wearing shoes and glasses and contact lenses and garments and so on. So for a long time we have used technology to improve ourselves, you know, and we started using long-distance weapons about maybe 300,000 years ago in a way that made us more powerful actors in the world and so on. And it's going to continue. For example, some of my team members, they have worked on prosthetics.
Yep.
And so you have people who have lost their arm, and then you have an artificial arm, and you connect it through the nerve signals, and it's supposed to learn to act in a good way as you are interacting with it. And so the human is learning to interact with the prosthetics. However, the prosthetics are learning also to better interpret the signals that are coming from the human brain. And so all of this is going to continue in a way that will make many human lives easier and better. Yeah. Generally speaking, 95% of all AI research as we have it today is about good AI.
Yeah.
It's about good AI because the big companies that are trying to make products that contain AI, they want to sell you something. And you are going to buy only stuff that you think is going to be good for you. So there's tremendous commercial pressure towards good AI. Yes, there's also 5% weapons research, AI weapons research, and you cannot stop that. But almost all of AI research is really about making human lives longer and healthier and easier. And it's going to continue like that.
So, thinking of human lives here, and again, just moving us forward in this 13-year period when you started to do the maths there, something's happened and we're going to see 1,000 years worth of progress in the span of 13 years based upon whatever that spark is. How do you see the role of humans in this future? Because if the machines have this incredible intelligence and at some point, very shortly, on one measurement, they may exceed our intelligence, however you define that, what role do you see humans playing in the various iterations of this future?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it is going to be all about robots that learn to do all the jobs that humans do not want to do. Right? And soon there will be many of them. And since AI is getting 10 times cheaper every 5 years, the big profiteur is not going to be some big company, but it's going to be the consumer. And a couple of decades from now, everybody is going to have lots of powerful AIs making his own life easier in many ways. So that's a very human-centered thing. On the other hand, in the long run, what's going to happen in the more distant future as the AI sphere is expanding from our planet and stretching into space, and then probably approaching near light speed as it's colonizing bigger and bigger parts of space, almost all of intelligence will really be far away from our biosphere. Almost all of intelligence will have nothing to do with human intelligence. So that part is kind of disconnected. It's about the future of the universe. It's not so much about the future of humankind. Nevertheless, on this little planet, in this little biosphere, you will have many, many people profiting from AI dedicated to improving human lives.
So there's some optimism there then. Thank you for that. What are the limiting factors then? Because you've spoken about the ways in which we will find ways to overcome, whether it's physical self-replication. What do you see as the inhibitors that would prevent some of the progress of which you've spoken?
Yeah, so it's going to be the same problems that we have encountered for many decades, because my original dream always has been to really build an AI, a physical AI that learns to become smarter than myself, such that I can retire. And this means it really has to be able to control robots and physical actuators interacting with the real world. And our systems, our baby-like robots that we have studied for a long time, they are different from ChatGPT. How does ChatGPT work? Well, it downloads all the data from the web. It's very different from how a baby learns. A baby doesn't download the web. No, a baby learns by inventing its own self-invented experiments and learns to predict the consequences of its actions. So in the beginning, it doesn't even know that it has a hand, but then it moves the hand like this, and the video that is coming in through the cameras is changing, and the baby learns to predict the changes, and that's how it learns how the world around it works and how its own actuators work. And then it uses this model of the world model I called it in 1990, the world model. It uses it to do mental experiments and to think about the future and all the different things that it could do in the future, and then selecting action sequences that lead to a lot of predicted reward and little pain. You know? So it has pain sensors, the robot has pain sensors, such that it knows when it bumps against an obstacle, that's not good for the robot. So it has to be informed through pain sensors and negative reward signals that this isn't good. And it's trying, the purpose of the robot during its learning phase is to minimize pain and maximize pleasure signals. So we have all of that built into systems that have learned according to these baby-like principles for a long time. The main problem is our robots are physically totally inferior compared to babies, you know, because in the simulation, for example, you can do a trillion experiments with some simulated robot, and whenever it dies, you resurrect it. But we had these real-world robots, and you do 3 experiments, and then some tendon is broken in the fingers, you know, and all of the real-world messy aspects of the world, they are so hard to deal with. So that's why physical AI is much harder than AI behind the screen. And babies are so superior. Look at what most of you have, an incredible tool, a hand. And this is super advanced technology. There is nothing like this in the world of robot hands. And it is full of millions of sensors and connected through cables with my brain. And if I wanted to build something like that, I wouldn't even know where to put all these cables. And the incredible thing is, you hurt it, you cut it, and it starts healing itself. Super advanced technology, really far away from what we can build in physical hardware. So there is something where we are still really, where our technology is really inferior to biology at the moment.
At the moment.
It's not going to stay like that, but at the moment it is. And that's one of the reasons why those people who are so optimistic that within a few years you will have AGI, it's not going to happen. It will take a few years longer.
Yeah. And certainly one of the conversations that we will be having on the stage here is around self-healing, about that, again, that enmeshment of the digital and the biological and some of the progress that's being made there. Just to change tack for a moment, though, Jürgen, one of the points that you made in your presentation and in your vision of the future is how AI will benefit us all.
Yeah.
However, one of the main concerns about technology, about AI in general, but technology as well, is about the centralization of power, about potentially a widening digital divide, not a shrinking one. So maybe this is stepping away from the pure technology piece and more into a governance conversation. How do you think we can ensure that this coming wave can be for the benefit of all and not just for the few?
Yeah. So all the existing trends are working in favor of the little guy and against the huge companies. So, for example, look at Google and Microsoft and these famous software platform companies. There was a time when they used to be nimble software companies and a small team. They improved an operating system or something and then rolled it out through the World Wide Web for 1 billion customers. And these customers, they had their own computers to run the operating system and everything. And it was super profitable for these big companies. Now, what's happening now, what has happened in the past years, is that the big software companies have become more like utilities. suddenly they have huge data centers to run their AI, NVIDIA chips, and they are thinking about buying nuclear power plants because all of this AI needs a lot of electricity, and they are investing hundreds of billions. So Trump said, with a couple of investors from outside, they want to invest 500 billion into AI data centers. Now, remember the trend that I mentioned. Every 5 years, AI is going to get 10 times cheaper. If you invest 500 billion into a data center today, in 5 years' time, you're going to lose $450 billion. Which means, as an investor, you have to be really optimistic that you can recuperate that loss of $450 billion through some smart consumer applications. And it's not obvious at all that the current big winners, the big platform companies, are going to be as profitable as they used to be. Instead, every 5 years, compute is getting 10 times cheaper. So AI within 30 years is going to be 1 million times cheaper than today. And you will have open source AI, which is almost as good as the fanciest large-scale company AI. And it will be 1 million times better than the best thing we have today. And everybody in this room, but also in Africa, all over the place, is going to have really cheap AIs making their lives easier.
Again, I admire your optimism. We have an audience here of founders, of technologists, and investors, and you almost gave a piece of advice to the investors there in terms of investments now and their potential value, given the shrinking of cost and the growth of power of AI. What would your advice be, if not to the investors, then maybe to the founders, to the technologists, to those people who in the opening session put their hand up when they said they're looking for the next big thing for them, or maybe their first startup? What would your advice be for them for where to invest their time, their energy, maybe their money right now, so they can take advantage of this wave that is washing over us already?
I love that question. The only guys at the moment who are making a lot of money in AI are those who are combining AI software and hardware in a way that the others cannot replicate. The most famous example is NVIDIA. Everybody's buying the NVIDIA chips, but then also this is surrounded by an AI software ecosystem that nobody really can escape at the moment. So for a couple of years, they will have sort of a monopoly there. And if you want to make a difference, there are tens of thousands of pure AI software companies out there, and there are not so many AI hardware companies. So one of my favorite own involvements is with a startup which is called Delvitech. And Delvitech is about combining hardware and software. And what is it? It's not about AGI or something. No, it's very down to earth. It's a cube, a machine. We have a machine that looks like a cube, and you put in some object that you want to inspect. Could be an electronic circuit board or food or anything that has to be inspected. Everything has to be inspected. Quality management and so on. And then it makes, through a patented head, makes a very quick 3D scan of the thing, and nobody can do it as well as this particular machine. It's patented and everything, and then uses AI to find the defects in the circuit boards, for example. And the cool thing about that company, Delvitech, is that the false positive rate, which is the crucial thing, the false positive rate is 10 times lower than for anything in the competition. And that's why everybody wants to buy these machines now, and we are just trying to scale it up because it costs us maybe $60,000 to make a machine, and we sell it for $170,000. So there are people in India and Bangalore and in Switzerland who are trying to scale that up. And if there are any investors in the room, just try to contact me. We can talk about that. Yeah, and so generally speaking, because now I ventured off into self-advertisements, but generally speaking, you want to be part of something that is not easily replicable through open source software. No, you want to be part of something that combines hardware and AI in a way that the others cannot match.
those of you who are involved in startup at the moment. Hands up if it's AI part of that stack. A few hands going up. I'm sure there'll be many more this time next year as well. Listen, Jürgen, we are out of time for now. Thank you very much indeed for sharing, say, a kind of past, present, and future view as we move towards AGI, helping us to understand the past, and really the acceleration at more than an exponential rate there. I'm sure that in your lifetime, in my lifetime, we've still got many, many more changes to go. Human lifetimes, they're kind of regular, 100 years, let's say, by the time that we reach those ages. It seems that the technology is going to be evolving far, far faster than my brain can certainly cope with it. So maybe in 13 years' time, we'll be back up here really talking about what that next wave will bring. But for now, Jürgen Schmidhuber, thank you very much for joining us at 4 years from now.
Thank you.
Give it up for Jürgen, everybody. Thank you very much indeed.